You know, there's something about being in nature that's really calming. And I think that I get to these places where I'm magnetically attracted because of the stressors that I admit to. And a lot of people don't admit to it. I admit to it. I think that I am stressed, but just like most other humans. In fact, the number one time or day of the week that heart attacks happen is Monday. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. So I'm not the only one that's stressed out. But, you know, the connotation of being stressed out usually means that you are off balance or you're weak, which is not right. So this business of medicine is, I've already talked to you about the perspective on a patient's level as far as sick care versus well care. But on a doctor level, especially for my guys that are coming out of a residency or medical school, you have to be aware that one of the most egregious messages we're given as doctors is as soon as you graduate, you have a large corporation saying, we'll take care of the business part, you just do the healing thing. And it sounds like a good deal. You know, you get this protected salary, which seems huge when you're coming from a residency. Seems like a good carrot to chase after. But then it doesn't ever stay like that. Usually there's a little bit of a protective first or second year, and then this other thing takes over, productivity. So saying that we'll take care of the business part while you take care of the healing, I think is false, because healing will be affected by the way you run the business. And if you have somebody else run it, they're not going to be concerned about getting people healthy. In fact, the second most egregious message is from the insurance companies. The insurance companies will reimburse doctors based on procedures. Now, certainly if you do a life-saving procedure like a bypass, you will definitely change the course of that individual's life from that point on, because of the threat of having to go through another surgery. I mean, whether you like it or not, that is massive, and the year after bypass is really eye-opening. Stenting is not that way. That's why most people who have stents, that temporary fix takes care of chest pain, might reverse a little bit of a early onset heart attack or ischemia. Stents don't usually change the course of disease as far as preventing the bypass. They make it more comfortable. But if you look at primary care, or let's just look at heart disease. Heart disease is a -- 1 killer in the United States. That doesn't mean everybody goes to bypass surgery. In fact, the bypass surgery is only a fraction, the application of it is only a fraction of the total amount of people that have heart disease. So my billing service, if they say you have to have a diagnosis and then we'll get you reimbursement, and the more diagnoses you have, the more money we'll get back. But here's the egregious second message. If you come up with a diagnosis of diabetes, new onset, uncontrolled, or if you have somebody that's in and you check their weight and you mention your BMI is a little high, or even worse, you say, please stop smoking tobacco. You get money for that, which is cool. You can find disease. You can tell somebody to stop smoking tobacco because it will lead to lung cancer. You can tell somebody that their weight's too high and you're going to be worse with regards to diabetes. But after that reimbursement, the incentive is not there to revert. In fact, you can get paid for the diagnosis. You will not get paid for preventing it. So if I see somebody and I say, yeah, I agree, you're peeing frequently and your poor wound healing and your brain fog is because of diabetes. Let me show you the blood tests. Let me put you on medicines. Bingo. You get reimbursed and theoretically you save a life. But you don't save a life. You just certify that patient about the curious symptoms that the patient looked up, and you say you are correct. Sometimes patients don't look it up and you just have to inform them. But we get money for that. However, if I get somebody to lose weight and reverse the diabetes, fix supplement deficiencies, reverse diabetes, choose the diet change, or just get off standard American diet to make them less brain foggy and that they can see better and that they can think clearer, I get no reimbursement for that. There's nothing that says you get reimbursed this amount of money because you prevented and reversed disease. In fact, it's in the cards that since you get so much reimbursement for finding stuff, for saying the tobacco is bad, so don't do it anymore, you get so much reimbursement for that, that it's not worth it to reverse the disease, because if you reverse the disease with somebody, they will do better, but your office doesn't get any. In fact, when I have patients that I call boring, that means they've made so many changes that I don't see them for another year to 2 years. That usually is money not going into the office. Now, I'm not ignoring the business aspect of it, but I am trying to tell my younger guys that you got to be careful about the model that you're going into. I mean, if you think about what we do as doctors, we learn a fund of knowledge when we're in medical school. You apply that fund of knowledge in residency training, at least 3 to 4 years. For surgeons, excellent, because you can sometimes learn from the best. For primary care docs, you can extrapolate on that fund of knowledge that you learned and do some practical applications under the scrutiny of somebody who's been there and is practicing outside the residency program. But the beauty in medicine is the next 10 years after training. Those of you who go to fellowship definitely will be an extension of the education process. So I applaud anybody that takes fellowship. But the nugget of practical application and fine-tuning and really learning your craft is in the next 10 to 20 years. And unfortunately, and you're supposed to go 30 to 40 years. But I think most of my doc friends get so burned out by 25 years they decide to retire. I don't understand what they're retiring on, but so when you have your craft that you're learning in your practice, when you learn that, but it's learned on the auspice of saying that you have to see a lot of patients and you can get a lot of money for diagnosing, you don't necessarily get any money for reversing, then your craft is being learned under prejudice. That's my suggestion or my interpretation. And I don't know that there's another way to learn. Think of it this way. If somebody is in a relationship, you leave college, you leave the house, and you start to date. You start to develop introspection on who you are, how you react to other people, what you're looking for in another person, in your mate. If you start dating but you begin with an abusive relationship, then that's going to be what you think is the norm. And it's not the norm, but you can say you're just unlucky that that's the way you started, and it will take a lot of therapy to reverse that, and healing, depending on how deep you go into that abusive relationship. But what I'm saying is that in the first 10 years of applying that knowledge base, if it's in a bastardized way, you're going to anticipate and accept that as being the norm. And sometimes that's not the norm. Again, if the norm is for a doctor to, and I'm going to get a lot of flack from my doctor friends and nurse practitioners, but if the norm is to follow the reimbursement pathway and play medicine that way, I think that it's going to be skewed. Again, based on the fact that, you know, the biggest problems with healthcare and the biggest expenditures are an aging population, a growing population, and then chronic disease. So there's a whole bunch of other things after that, pharmaceutical prices. But if you think about chronic disease, if you can reverse the disease before it shows up in that aging population, then it doesn't have to be $11,000 per person per year. And that's crazy. I remember when it was $4,000 per person per year, and I thought, whoa, that's expensive. But the United States is topping off all developed countries as being the the most expensive place for healthcare. And yet we're not the healthiest. So the problem is always going to be, maybe it's the American lifestyle. Maybe we have a deserving attitude. That can be argued. When disease can be reversed and it can be reimbursed, that's the perfect setup for a good doctor to learn. But just you guys that are coming out of medical school, just be on your guard. It's always nice to have that philanthropic nugget to say, I want to heal the world. And then you get out into practice and you don't know anything about billing, so you're a prisoner. You just say, I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm going to sign up with this company because of the protection, the guarantee. They give me a huge guarantee. Cool. It's like getting a loan. We'll give you a loan for $1 million, but you have to pay 30% interest. Oh, $1 million, yes. And you don't even think about the interest. So that's what I feel is the problem, and I don't have a solution. So, I know you're looking for a solution, but my solution, I guess for me, would be to find a new way. So I took the hits. I was blessed enough to get the paycheck that the hospitals have been paying me for the last 25 years. But knowing that my craft can make people heal, I think is really reassuring and so heartwarming. But in a very pragmatic way, heartwarming feeling doesn't pay the bills of putting your kids through college and paying for your house and paying for food on the table. It doesn't, in a pragmatic way, but I really think that if you serve humanity, that you will be rewarded. I know that's really esoteric, but I really think that there's value in that. I can't quantify it. I can only tell you that the reward in all of the religious books, when you serve humankind, you will go to heaven or wherever you think your source is. And I think there is value in that. It makes you feel good. And today, I think that treadmill that everybody is running to buy stuff and feel temporary reward, there is very little value in material things. It's good to have money because it somewhat keeps you safe, but you become a prisoner of it. So going back to being a doctor, it's good to have a paycheck, but you just have to know there's other things that are greater for your direction. Now, if you just want to be super rich, be a plastic surgeon, be an orthopedic surgeon, neurosurgeon, take the hits, do some good, but please try to reverse your disease. Not your disease, well, yes, your disease, because most of my doctors usually get pretty burned out and have disease and retire early, but influence somebody to make some changes. I think if you influence one person and they're successful, you can actually extend that to the other decades following them, and you'll impact not only that one person, you'll impact several generations after that. So it's, again, to practice what we're taught in medical school, or the Hippocratic Oath. Does anybody even remember the Hippocratic Oath? But to practice that, I think, gets overshadowed by saying that you can drive expensive cars and go to different parts of the world and fly and have vacations. But if you're to do all that stuff, cool. But if you do it and you're just diseased, whether it's economic disease or medical disease, is it really worth it? So I guess my final message to the guys coming out would be, while you're learning that fund of knowledge, before you apply it or before you put it to the test with the 10 years after training, try to lead a healthy life as best as you can. Try to impact the lives of those around you, your family, your friends. See if you can do that with your knowledge base, not just come up with a diagnosis. It's always cool to come up, to be the first one to diagnose something. That's always cool. But, finding a murmur or finding wheezing on a chest auscultation, that is cool. You tell that to the patient, say, see, here's your blood test. Oh, I heard something, and we'll get some tests. That's cool, but that's not the norm. In fact, Medicare wellness exams, it's suggested not to even do a physical exam because it's usually not that productive. It's supposed to be a wellness exam to review medical disease. It also is to empower people to stay healthy, but how do you tell somebody with diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, maybe a little depression, and a little bit of fatigue and osteoporosis, how do you tell that person to stay healthy when you're trying to just refill all their medicines and your visit is like this small? Again, it goes back to that reimbursement thing, and with very little reimbursement for wellness, but big time reimbursement for surgeries and finding disease, where do you think you're going to be going if you don't know about true preventive medicine? So if you do have any medical illnesses, if you're overweight, take care of all that stuff first while you're in training. I think the value of doing that on your own will reward you tenfold, because you'll be able to apply it to what you learn in medical school and residency. And when you learn it and preload it before you go through that 10 years of longitudinal learning, I think you have a different aspect. You see things in a different light versus seeing things as this patient is diabetes, this patient is tobacco use, this patient is obesity. If you see somebody for where they lie, and then you say, I got the diseases, you figured that out, meaning you, the patient, figured that out, let's see if we can reverse this. I'm not going to get reimbursed. I might not see you again, but if that person gets better, there is a moral reward. But then I think that they'll send everybody to you that is also looking for change, not looking for diagnosis, looking for change. So if you preload your practice for that, then you will have people that are invested in making change, and that is fun, versus people that are invested in just getting refills. Because imagine if you say, I want you to stop tobacco, and the person is always going to hear that. They'll get pissed off after a while. They'll just say, I know you want me to stop, and then they'll turn off the microphone at that point in time. So you can either front load your practice to be doing refills, or you can front load your practice to be challenged with making lifestyle changes, because there is an algorithm if you come up with a diagnosis. There is no algorithm for making lifestyle changes because everybody's so different. There's so many stacked variables in getting somebody to be sick that it's kind of cool. It's like detective work. You have to apply your problem-solving skills. You have to apply which is more important, and then you have a reward at the end. But so hopefully this gives any of you guys in training some ideas. And if you're not a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a healthcare worker, if you know somebody and this helped you, pass this along. But this is where I am at this point, and I think that 25 years I'm on another paradigm. I'm not going to retire because I am not burned out. I told you initially I was stressed out, but I'm neutralizing the stress with healthy lifestyle. And that healthy lifestyle that I'm doing now has always been there. I'm really going to maximize on it, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to be a lifestyle coach, which is essentially the same thing as being a doctor, but without use of medicine. So I got to really up my game. So if I can influence one guy in training or one gal in training, I think that the reward is there. Stay healthy. Challenge your doctors, those of you who are patients. Do research on your own, and try to always, every year that you are given a medicine, always try to research on your own or ask your doctor, how can I change my life so I can get off the medicine? Thanks for watching up until this point in time. If you have any comments down below, even if you're a doctor and you don't agree, hey, put it down below. I take criticism, always do. I've been doing it for 25 years, just interpreting it the wrong way. So thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next video.